To break things up here, and also to get people to come over and talk to us, we occasionally have a Beer with Will segment filmed late in the afternoon.
Welcome to Pints and Politics.
My guest today is Josh Sharp.
That's me.
One of the rising stars of Republican political operatives, according to several magazines. What two magazines named you like a rising star?
One of the publications does their sort of list every year of rising stars, and I guess somebody messed up and put me on it. So,
So Josh, you were just telling us about your background. Where did you grow up?
Grew up in the Central Valley of California, so a small farming town, middle of nowhere. Went to USC for communications, of all things. Coming out of that, started my first campaign and just never really looked back.
What was that first campaign?
It was the Steve Poizner Meg Whitman race, California gubernatorial race in 2010. I joined it early in the summer of 2009, and it was almost like a presidential. It was a huge race. We were the cheapskates that spent $30 million. Whitman spent about $90 million just in the primary. So there were big staffs on either side.
This was the Republican primary.
It was the Republican primary, yeah. And so both teams had a lot of operatives on it, and I, tried to become a strategist on the race because I thought that was a genius position for a 22-year-old to have, and at the time, the only thing that really was available was a social media and digital director kind of job, which was still kind of a new thing at the time.
That was a new thing. But
It was very new. I mean, there wasn't the title digital director wasn't even used at that point. I think it was like director of visual media or something. I mean, that was not yet a part of campaigns. But it was the only thing they would give a 22-year-old any real responsibility on. And so I figured, well, let's give it a whirl. And it included everything from the website, online advertising, and then eventually web videos. So that's where I got my start in the video world.
So you kind of learned this by doing.
Yeah, very much so.
And were there classes at USC and sort of digital management?
No, I was on the campaign. We were doing all the various digital things, Google AdWords and website maintenance and all of that. And we started needing some videos and trying to do some of them in-house. And I had a semester of video editing experience from high school. And so I was the most qualified person on the campaign to do any sort of video. And so I started making some really awful, terrible web videos. But, I stayed lit and kept working on it and gradually got better equipment and better software. And eventually the ad maker on the race started sending more of the web videos my way instead of doing it himself. And so it just sort of took off. It became a thing.
I mean, web videos are still seen as sort of the lower end of the campaign video chain.
Mm-hmm.
At the highest end are the name brand, highly compensated ad makers. But originally they had no interest at all in putting stuff on the web, except maybe a finished commercial.
Right, correct. I mean, it's for a long time it's been the TV ads just happened to end up on the web as well. There just wasn't really a reason or the views to justify some sort of large investment in it. I would say in the 2010 cycle, it was just starting to get where a web video was a thing that you could actually influence campaigns with. 2012 cycle, it became more of, you could actually get a lot of views from it. Presidential election, there was a lot more attention on it. Mm-hmm. So we could make basically any ad at the RNC and get 50,000 views organically. Since then, it's become a lot more cluttered, and so it's gotten a lot harder to sort of push through with it, but there's a ton of video content that you can get attention with, and it's all just, what's changing is the ways that you use it and what works and what doesn't, but the medium has definitely taken off.
So you went from Poizner to the RNC directly?
Not directly. So when Poizner lost the primary, election night, Stuart Stevens, who's the ad maker on the race, called and said, you got to come to DC and work at my shop, and you can make TV ads and radio ads and web videos and the whole thing. So I packed up everything, moved my life from Sacramento to DC, and I worked there for about 5 months in the 2010 general election. I learned how to do TV 30s, how to produce everything. And then after that, I did a short stint at the House Republican Conference,
yep.
So working on Capitol Hill, which was a great view into the legislative process and actually governing. And then I applied for the RNC starting out the 2012 cycle. And I said, I see how much you're paying vendors, pay me that for a month, and I'll make however many ads I can make in a month. and they seemed to like that math, and so I got the job and started making more and more ads, and eventually they really started to take off.
Were you hired by someone who used to be in the military at the RNC?
Yeah, my boss was Sean Spicer, who was the communications director then at the time. That was early on into the time with Ryan's Priebus starting as RNC chair that year in 2011, and Sean had just started as communications director pretty recently. In fact, he was on the reserve for the entire time I was working there.
The Navy Reserve.
The Navy Reserve, yeah. And so every once in a while he'd have to take some weekends off, and for duty.
Leave you in charge?
Yeah, maybe not that, but he definitely made it a priority throughout. It was really cool.
But he saw the value of digital video
Yeah.
content.
Yeah, he wanted to go up in a big way with digital video. It was an investment that he really fought for internally, and he helped clear the path. And he also helped clear some room out in a communications calendar to actually make a lot of the videos that were moving. And so it was a big part of just, again, it was an evolving medium. Nobody really knew how this fits into a communications plan. So we really had to work on what videos were working, what was getting picked up by the press, the time investment you would make in different ads, the research investment that goes into them. But it became, just a thing that we got a pretty good workflow down on. We eventually started doing rapid response ads and everything that we would turn around in a matter of hours.
And these were ads for what?
Largely around the presidential. So a lot of what we did was anti-Obama ads.
So this is the Romney-Obama 2012.
Right, it was the Romney-Obama 2012 election, and the Romney campaign took the lead on a lot of the positive messaging coming out. They had the candidates' biographical materials and all of those assets. We had a lot of the Obama tape going back years and years and years, working with Joe Pounder and the research team.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had really gotten a workflow where if Obama said something that didn't line up with his past record, we could turn that around fairly quickly, and we had the tape to prove it. And so our specialty was really the attack ads that held the candidate accountable based on what they had said on tape even earlier.